Next, the world revamp. Should we talk about the world revamp?
Yeah, they confirmed this, and I'm not even that sure.
They sort of ish confirmed it. It's interesting. At least we've had official comment.
We have to try and be, what's the term? No. We have to try and be awful about this. Hard confirmed, yes.
Hard confirmed. If Ian doesn't deliver, then, I don't know, something funny will happen,
then
right?
Nothing will happen because no one at Blizzard has any responsibility for anything that goes wrong with the game.
Oof. Oof. So here's the deal. They were talking about rumors regarding the next expansion being pirate-themed. Mike Ybarra shot that down in a tweet. Speaking of tweets, there's been interesting tweets about Mike Ybarra. dropped into Max's chat.
I see.
That will be fun to talk about. But yes, he said no pirates. To swap it to the other topic, I think we should talk about a world revamp and what Ian has said. So, it's actually kind of interesting. Ian said that they're definitely open to a world revamp at some point. It's a shortcoming. If you take a step back and think about World of Warcraft as an ongoing living world, if we've kind of painted ourselves into a corner where we have all these iconic locations, but we can't really use them because they've already been used. And yes, they do go back to some of these places, like a Heritage Armor quest, but he fundamentally is right. Now, this was as a part of one of those interviews where you don't actually get the full transcript. It's just the way that a lot of sites handle their interviews. So what will happen is the author of the interview will kind of condense down a bunch of stuff and kind of give you the take. So they also said this. Next year will mark WoW's 20th anniversary. That would seem an opportune time for Blizzard to revamp WoW's original continents, the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, much like 2010's Cataclysm. Ian Hazzikostas said an old world revamp is something that is, quote, likely to happen in the future. I think that's going to mean that it's a plan. It pretty much does mean it's a plan. Like something of that scale, you plan years in advance.
Yeah,
because it's so much work.
We are basically almost professional in Hazzikostas interpreters at this point in time.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for so long and trying to read into it, and he's not the kind of person to say likely to happen about something that they aren't sure about. He very much always goes... if he doesn't want to say, he usually tries to deflect. And this is clearly not a deflection. This is more or less he might as well have said, we don't know when, but we are working on it. He might as well have said that, I think.
Yeah. So he said that... But the team would learn lessons from Cataclysm, which was criticized for essentially deleting parts of 2004 era WoW and use modern solutions to preserve currently existing places in the game were it to become a reality. So what that means to me is potentially a few different things. I think we're just going to do a video on this because we can probably dive into it and show people in a good way some of the data mine resources that people have found. It was fun, yes. Our boy Laced was. We have a data mining channel on our work Discord, and he was just dropping loads of cool shit in there through last night. It was great. But what it means to me, right, is Chromie Time exists for Cataclysm. Then what do? Do they do a new? Because here's actually what's ideal in my brain.
Oh no.
Okay, there's two ideas.
I don't want to see that.
Uh-oh. Yeah, don't worry, it has nothing to do with Judy Hopps. So, I got him. Jesus. I really... One of the great things about knowing Matt for many years is I know exactly what to do to press a button in him.
Yeah. For clarification, I didn't expect him to literally say that.
And that's exactly why I said it. That's how it works.
Man outed himself like nothing before. Jeez, Lord. Jeez,
but
Louise.
Is it genuine? Is it not?
Oh, you're trying to play my game where you just layer on irony so thick no one ever knows if you mean what you say?
Exactly.
Doesn't work for you.
And don't worry. And it's really dangerous whenever loads of your audience is in America because they're a very sincere people. And they're like, wait, what? You don't believe the things that you're saying? Uh-oh. So we'll see. You can ponder that one, but my two options for this, right, is number one, you do it region by region, so it's World of Warcraft, big happenings in Lordaeron, and that's just a patch, and Lordaeron gets updated to current era, right? And then you kind of work through the game somehow with your story, or you do this, and Matt, I think this might be the ticket. You do the whole revamp at once. The revamp is just zone problems, kind of evergreen feeling, more so than Cataclysm was. Because, like, the 2004 quests were very much just the story of those zones. Whereas Cataclysm was just, yep, there's a big cataclysm through everything. Now, revamp all the zones. Do an MSQ like FF14. That can be anywhere in those zones. You don't need to have, like, you level through this zone and that zone and that zone and that zone. Do the MSQ.
You mean something that ping-pongs you around all over the place?
It's a proper MSQ, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the leveling's a bit more open-ended. I think in a world like that, you'd also have infinite leveling, so there'd be a level cap, but like in Guild Wars 2, there's still a bar that you fill whenever you get XP. Maybe that gives you like a mastery point like it does in Guild Wars 2. Maybe it just gives you a box of loot. Who knows? Maybe you do something like that. I think that's pretty much what would work in an ideal world.
Mm-hmm.
Why is John pleading the fifth?
Because you were talking about Judy Hopps, that's why.
Good man.
Yeah, so
very glad John's in the team.
Yeah, there's something about this whole world revamp idea that you're like, okay, well, it doesn't sound like that's too confirmed, right? That sounds like Ian's just kind of went, it's in the future, we're talking about it, we'll work on it probably. But there was a little bit of now this isn't going to be evidence. However, it is very interesting. Because you think about...
As a fan of Zach Baggins' work, I'm going to say this is compelling evidence from renowned experts in the field.
It's compelling evidence. So there is... in the portal room in Stormwind, there's a lot of portals. And you go, well, they had to add a little bit extra for Valdrakken. So you expect wherever we're going next time, they need to add like at least one, maybe two new portals, maybe at most, if we go to 2 zones. No, because if you watch this, you'll see what they did. Obviously, the text spoils it, but you know, that's a lot of room for portals, don't you think? Now, why do you think we would need twice as many portals? Well, what if we had twice as many zones? What if we had a portal to every zone? That would be insane.
To every zone.
What if we had a portal to every major part of World of Warcraft?
Just have fucking 50 portals. Yeah, the Lordaeron portal.
Yeah,
that's a bit like the fucking Dalaran room, remember? In Legion, you go into the underbelly of Dalaran into Khadgar's big nerd cave, and there's a bunch of portals that are useful.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people in chat who are, I'm going to say completely correct, but also complete buzzkills. Yes, they're future-proofing. Yes, this is likely just them doubling it on because they go, well, we'll change the map now.
This also isn't the smoking gun.
And then we won't have to change it for a long time. It's just, yeah, we'll do this now, and then it'll never have to be done again. We're happy enough. But what if?
What if?
Look into your heart, look into your soul, and think back to when you were a child, and the world looked bright, the world looked beautiful. Probably.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know, and everything was new and shiny, and you know, it drew your attention, and you weren't a cynical old bastard walking about waiting for death to come so you can finally be free.
God,
imagine those days.
What were you like before you were introduced to anime?
Sorry,
just an unrelated thought.
I don't know because believe it or not, with the age I am, that was fairly young. Thanks, television. But where was I going with that? Yes, I was going to say stop being cynical and have a bit of joy in your hearts. No, like you're definitely right, but it is interesting that they just went, bam, here we go. We'll just double it.
It's like, this is an odd patch. Like, yeah, it's something you're going to do, but it's an odd patch to do it in. But I think more importantly, Matt, as you scroll down, you will find more, you know, the gun is a little bit smoky.
It's so shiny. Look at the light. Look at the painted light on it.
Do you remember, like, that was, you log in, Stormwind has a harbor now, there's big boats. That was a full chub moment, you know, back in the day when Wrath of the Lich King launched. You get Titan's Grip, Varian's back, and a big boat. Incredible, and a zombie invasion. Those were really cool days. So we got new boats.
That doesn't even look right to me. That looks wrong.
I know.
That looks like, you know, whenever they're one of like the old cartoons will have a scene where they just draw the really cartoony characters super realistic for a second, and it'll be like, here's this teenager who's just like normal looking, and then they'll do one that's like, here's all of like their pockmarks and acne and stuff really horribly detailed. In my head, it feels like this. Obviously not quite as grotesque, but I'm looking at this and going, there's almost like, you know, the uncanny valley response where you look at something and go, that's what I know, but my brain's screaming at me. It's like that. It's so pretty, and it is what we know, but it's a shinier version.
Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah.
very good.
So we got that. Let's keep on going. We got siege machines.
Yeah, there's also some other weird stuff that I believe Keyboard Term was pointing out about. There's a suspicious amount of machinery and machine-themed things going on as well. I'm not sure if they're in our dock, but they're just saying.
We got some Night Elf assets as well.
We tents. Look at that. I wonder where these tents could go. I mean,
Also,
Dark Moon
Fair. Why are you just revamping the Dark Moon Fair? Who knows? We've got new Midsummer Fire Festival assets. So, like, man,
that's a year away too.
Yeah.
Summer's over. Not that you'd know from
heat.
it being the hottest day of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, so quite interesting. I know at least on Keyboard Turns on her Twitter, there's like way more assets as well. And this does go on top of another pretty large bank of assets as well that we found. They've continually been doing this. And then you think about the freebies that they've got. Because the Centaur are redone. If you go and fight Hogger's a high-res boy now.
He's cuddly, but he's a high-res boy. Like.
Yeah, that's the problem. He's too cuddly. Yeah. But they have just got these high-res versions of like most of the old world mobs. Furbolgs, skeletons, gnolls, loads of like buildings. They've got a new set of generic human buildings, generic orc buildings. There's a lot. So if they did want to, and then the other thing.
Oh, hey, Keyboard Turn, there's more stuff you haven't posted yet. Nice.
Hell yeah. And then you look at a lot of the things that they will have developed but can reuse. Between all the different dungeons, all the different zones, and especially, think about that through the lens of their game engine, how they can implement those assets, how there are plenty of things I'm sure that they've created that are going to be created with the future in mind. And a lot of this is the sort of thing that you wouldn't really think about as much as a player of games. Like, here's a really good example. You're doing animation rigs, you can have a few different body types, use some pretty nifty retargeting, and then you could have a far more efficient pipeline, for your animations. That's the sort of thing that if you're a rigger or something and you're playing a game, you might notice they've done that, but the average player probably won't. So that's just to say, who knows how many like pipeline and process changes they've made. Certainly, you think the work that they did in Ardenweald is obviously quite useful now. Between Ardenweald, Emerald Dream, Val'Shra, Emerald Nightmare, there's easily enough that if they wanted to like revamp some of those old zones, they could. I think the big question will be, right? Because, this will be the goofy thing. So, you're in Ashenvale, right?
Always in my head.
Good. You find Zidormi?
Zidormi's the one
because you want to move.
Zones, yep.
So imagine they've done the full world revamp, and you're standing in the current Cataclysm version of Ashenvale. You talk to Zidormi, you get a loading screen, and suddenly all the trees are HD, the grass textures are new. That would be a bit strange. Like, it would be really neat. It would almost remind me of Halo Combat Evolved. Or is it Halo 2? The old Halo Remaster games they did. You could actually press a button and it would swap in real time to the old assets and presentation versus the revamp one. It was really cool. But certainly would be a bit weird and jarring. So I do wonder how they would handle that, because we're talking about all these like brand new assets. Do they just end up going as light touch as they can? But I mean, if you think about Ashenvale, especially those trees, like the reason why those trees work is because they're big and above you. But if you look at those leaves, shit don't hold up compared to what you're getting like in modern, stuff.
I tried to get a screenshot that was very pretty in Ashenvale a while ago. That was really challenging. Making that place look good when people's eyes are on it is not easy, like not even close. So I imagine they would go for like the soft replacement approach. I would assume they just go, okay, well, we're going to just replace these because, well, obviously you're going to kind of bloat the game a little bit that way, but at the same time, why would you leave old stuff in if you have the way to replace it? Now, you would have maybe issues with scalability and graphical problems there, but I could totally imagine them going, here's a button you can press, because they didn't leave you with a toggle for characters in WoD. They didn't go, you can have your old character that looked awful. They went, this is new and good now, please enjoy.
But then the thing that's confusing to me is like there's so much geometry stuff that's like tied to the Cataclysm. So do they, because like they don't have to remake the zones twice. update the Chromie Time version to have the new models, and then have the modern version like that. It's like they could do it, I'm sure. They have 700 motherfuckers making this game. Maybe more, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can see why this is so not likely to be next expansion. Just because even the amount of effort, the amount of consideration involved to do this right is clearly, like, I imagine that's what they spend a lot of their time thinking about, is how do we do this? Because, you know, people will be mad either way. How do you anger the fewest people, I guess? Is maybe one of the problems they have. So I don't know. It's like, because obviously you're even thinking
I think Keyboard Turns actually touched on something that's fairly... there is like the more nuclear line in the sand option. She says phasing issues cause a lot of chaos for designers. They certainly do. I remember, playing with my guild in Wrath of the Lich King, and it's just like, cool. My mate is a ghost. They're in another phase because their Argent tournament progression is slightly different. But like even now, and that's going to be a source of bugs and chaos. Right, like especially I think without actually knowing how WoW Edit works and how their dev tools work, it's would be pointless speculation. But Keyboard Turn essentially says they could just do a new continent. Now, when I say new continent, I don't mean there's a new calendar somewhere else. I mean technically, right? So
it's a new zone entirely with all of the new subzones in, as opposed to this is a different version of Silithus that's set inside the calendar that you're on.
I guess there's one bit of me that's just thinking about file sizes getting really big, but
that is like
how many of those assets are already in the game? That's another thought.
I suppose.
So what you'd probably then do is you would make some sort of, I don't know, just call it the Chronal something. That's
the Chronal
where...
Spire from Genre.
We bring back the Chronal Spire, and if you want to go and do the old stuff, you enter it there. But otherwise, it's the new WoW. And that would, what Keeper in Turn says is essentially WoW 2.
Yeah.
Like, for all intents and purposes, that's WoW 2. Yeah. Even though we're actually in, like, WoW 3 or 4 by now, design language-wise, but that's kind of a separate topic. Yeah, they could do it that way. That would be interesting.
It's a fascinating observation you made there about the phase zones areas being avoided in Dragon races. I didn't notice that.
Oh, yeah.
The Silithus race is in Old Silithus, not Sword Silithus. And there's none in Dockshore because phasing in it. Some of that might be technical, I imagine, but I also imagine some of it's user experience. Because there are a few things worse than that. Like I actually, what did I do the other day? It was yesterday. I forgot that you didn't need the Undercity Exalted to do the Forsaken Heritage Quest, and I haven't finished it yet. But I went to find the Undercity, or a place to get the Undercity Tabard, so I could grind my rep on that, and I couldn't find it for the life of me because the Orgrimmar I was in didn't have the.
The Orgrimmar I was in.
Exactly, that's the problem. The org I was in didn't have the post-battle for Lordaeron person there. And then I went to Undercity, and Undercity wasn't there because it was post-battle for Lordaeron in that part of the world for me for some reason. Obviously, Zadormi's there in Tirisfal, and you can go back there, and I did that. But I was sat going, man, what the hell? That was like a really... And this is me, like, imagine a player who doesn't know what's going on, trying to find something, and it's just not appearing anywhere. So I could very much see them wanting to go... destroy phasing, make it all fresh and clean, especially when they've been building the zones. And was it Caligula or someone else pointed out saying that the size, if we're going to keep dynamic flight, if they're making new content, it has to be profoundly bigger to be in any capacity gameplay friendly. Because you're like, here's your revamped Elwyn Forest. Go to the other side of Elwyn. Oh, you're there. Okay, cool. We're gonna have some dialogue. Because the one thing they've been very, very strong with using recently, and I noticed it in the 10.2 PTR stuff, there's a decent bit of the, like, hey, you're going to do a bit of quest, you're going to walk around, you're going to do some stuff, and someone's going to talk to you during it, and their dialogue is long enough that we expect you to just skip it, so we'll give it to you while you're doing stuff. So if you're trying to do that and you're actually playing, in a zone that's that small and you're dynamic flying around the place, then you can see, like, all right, here's your travel time. Oh, sorry. sorry, we can't give you any dialogue because you're too fast. So I could definitely see them actually figuring that scaling stuff out as like a new continent. But then that does raise a really awkward question of what do you do? Because how long does it take to make a zone? How long is it going to take you to make 7 Dragon Isles? And then go, here's your new game. Because an expansion is... we've got... for sake of argument, let's say we're not getting 10-3. We get 6 zones. Then you go, well, how long is it going to take to rebuild the world? Did that take 2 years?
Let's break that down, actually. So... and actually, I know this might seem like a total out of left field thing, but think about Resident Evil 4 Remake.
I'd love to.
Good. So how does Resi 4 Remake end up being like almost like a guaranteed pitch perfect thing? It's because like so much of what you would class as being pre-production is done, right? So yes, they're doing the Dragon Isles. They need to work out they just need to work out like, what is the Dragon Isles? Where are things? What's the layout? Who lives there? Okay, right. Onaran Plains. What's that? They got to make the lore. They got to make up the new factions. They got to get the lore right. That fucking ties into the side. Blah 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 blah. Right? And they have to generate all of that from nothing. Now you look at Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor. You know what factions live where. You know how the zones are laid out. You know what your POIs are. Right? You know all this shit. So whenever you say, how long does it take to make multiple Dragon Isles? That's the thing. If you were to make the Dragon Isles again, how long would that take you? The labor, right? Obviously, there is work because you got to work out, like, what are the stories? What things have changed? Yes. But I think my point here is you are working off a far more solid basis. So much of your pre-production is already done. Then it's a production issue. It's about, like... how can you parallelize your teams? How are you actually able to pull that off? And I actually think they can pull that off. I think they can eminently pull it off given the size of their team and, so much of the creativity is done for them. And in those instances where the creativity is sort of already done for you, or at least a part of it, it means you can focus on what you're doing that is new. I mean, hell... the reason I brought up Resident Evil 4 Remake is because it's amazing. It's like artistically amazing, and it obviously had the blueprint of the prior game to work off. And that meant that they didn't need to focus on making a new Resident Evil game. They knew it was Resi 4, so because of that, they're able to focus their efforts. You think of Tears of the Kingdom. Like, yes, there's the whole underworld and stuff, but Hyrule's Hyrule. That evidently helped them a fuckload when it came to making that game, and that game was not made by a very large team. So I think World of Warcraft being a large team, a revamp meaning that it is zones that everyone knows like the back of their hand, or the history's there. It's just a question of what is a satisfying way to bring that history forward. I think that is actually like really quite doable.
Just faster to paint by numbers and freestyle on top, like, basically.
Yeah, that's essentially what I would say. So. Yeah, I think it could allow them to focus on the stuff that will matter to players, rather than focus on things that once players are in the new expansion, they take for granted and don't appreciate.
Like the whole game, basically,
yeah. Yeah, because it takes so much work just to have another slice of World of Warcraft. People won't appreciate that because they already have World of Warcraft, and the things that people will appreciate is what you're able to do above that. Right? So it's like if they can focus on, yes, we have matched expectations very quickly, now we get to work on things that will make you excited. Like, I think that's kind of the way to do it.
Perfect. We've sorted it out. World Revamp is eminently possible and will happen in no time whatsoever. And it'll be great and everyone will be happy.
Fantastic. Job's done. Next job.
World
okay.
separate.